And so I'd like to share with you the picture of what the greater community is and what contact with it means. This is presented in the New Message Revelation on Life in the Universe and many other books and teachings as well, which are all available for you to read. The New Message reveals that our world is emerging into this larger panorama of life called the greater community. That we are an emerging world, a world undergoing a rapid period of development out of our deep and long-standing tribal past into a state of greater national unity and global unity, transitioning out of old identities into a new identity of being human, of all people in the world being your brother and your sister in that humanity. That is dawning in the human mind and consciousness at this time. And that this process, once begun, cannot be stopped. This process, this inevitable process of unification, however difficult and even violent, cannot be stopped. And what has precipitated this, in part, is not what we have done in the world, or our forays out into outer space, or anything like that. It's actually contact with other forms of intelligent life who've come from beyond the world for their own purposes. And that contact has been underway for some decades. And yet it is not what most people think it to be. It is in fact something very different. The universe we're emerging into is not a spiritual universe. It's not a universe that mirrors our religious aspirations and prophecies, hopes and wishes. It is a natural environment. It is an expression of nature on a vast scale, where there is competition for resources, competition for environment. And this is the universe we're emerging into as a young adolescent world, struggling with ourselves in conflict and contention, destroying our natural environment, laboring under the weight of old beliefs and traditions that do not honor the reality of a human family. So this is us stepping out now into a vast natural arena of life. And the new message from God reveals that those forms of life that we will first encounter are not enlightened space travelers or scientists. It will instead be those who make the long journey to get here for their own purposes. And these forces the new message calls economic powers, collectives who are here to gain access to our earth and its resources and its people. And that this is the real nature of contact happening in the world. And it's happening at a time when humanity is facing great waves of environmental change, a huge environmental crisis brewing in the world that is our making, the result of decades and centuries of errant use of the world's environment, pollution of its air and its waters and its soils. We're coming to this convergence point where the forces of population growth, resource depletion, environmental destruction, species loss, the loss of arable land and fresh water, the poisoning of our oceans, all of it converging upon us. And at that point as well, contact is happening. Contact with forces who would seek to use us and our disadvantaged position for their own ends. And so these two forces, the force of contact and the force of the great waves of change, these are the two greatest and most consequential events in human history. They hold the greatest power to challenge the habitability of our world by human beings in the future. And yet they are also the greatest opportunity for us to do that thing which we have never yet found a way to do, which is to finally put an end to our conflict with one another, to our constant differentiation and division within our nations and societies, and actually come to the table out of necessity for the survival of life on planet Earth. These two forces can give us that opportunity. And that has something to do with you, that has something to do with your spirituality, your higher purpose in life, should not be a wonder at all. It's quite clear why that would be. Because we are all people sent into the world to make a contribution to the time in which we live. And this time in which we live represents the convergence of these great forces of change at a planetary scale and at a greater community scale. And if we don't understand that, are not aware of that, how on earth would we ever understand ourselves? It's a question. I'm sure we've tried. And so the gift here is that we finally have the picture, or enough of the picture, to understand who we are and who we are meant to be, and the environment of life around us, where the world is going, and how we can prepare to respond to that greater direction of the human race.